Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Totally Unscripted. I'm delighted that we've been able, via VPNs, proxies, uh, and various means, to be joined by Jordan Rhea, who's based in Beijing in China and has done a ton of stuff within the education field. And for us on this show, he's doing a lot of that with Google Apps Script. So hi Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So today we're gonna let Jordan show some of the projects he's gonna be or has been working on. Just a reminder that you can chime in some questions in the YouTube chat. I've just posted the link to the Hangout as well, so if you want to jump in and join us, please feel free to do that. So today, Jordan's going to talk about teachers as makers coding with Google Apps Script. But before we do that, we thought we'd just go through some news and community things just to flag some bits and pieces that have come out. In terms of news, I think there's been a couple of things. So this was kind of dropped on everyone. Everyone I've spoken to has heard nothing about this until it's come out. So I don't know if people are familiar with Google Data Studio. It's a very simple web-based visualization you can make dashboards. There was a set of data inputs that you could use as part of Google Data Studio, but it was announced, I think, a couple of days ago that there's now these community connectors. And I think the interesting thing for the AppScript community is that these community connectors are created with Google AppScript. So I think it's more evidence of Google AppScript proliferating kind of the Google infrastructure. So I think it, in terms of long-term sustainability of Google Apps Script, I think is a very positive thing. So what the community connector does is basically allow you to create data connections with any data source. So any data source that you can get access to or generate with Google Apps Script, you can plug that into Data Studio. Bruce, I know you're quite interested in data visualization. Is this something you've had a chance to play with, or is there any immediate ideas that have come to mind with you?
One of the things that I noticed was that I've just come back from the GDD conference in Poland, and there was a massive interest in Data Studio from people that were coming by the office hours, which was the place that people could come and ask about what's going on in AppScript. And what it was really about was to do with being able to do reporting more effectively than you can do in AppScript, because with sheets and stuff, it's not that great. So I think we'll see a lot more take up of that now that it's become a lot easier. So I think it's a great development, and there was quite a big interest at GDD in it.
Mm-hmm. I know Real Nutterman, he's had a quick play with it, and I can see Jacobs, I think, asking about the verification side of the community connector. So Real has said that there is a different authentication, and he said it's nice. I think as part of this, the app verification issue or feature that we have now isn't a problem. I don't know if you know anything different, Bruce.
Yeah, what I'll do with it, in fact, is I'll probably do a little video this month and put it out there so people can get started with it. It's easy to get started with. In fact, Real was at the GDD summit as well, and he actually showed a few things with it. It was pretty good.
Excellent. Jordan, I don't know if data visualization is that something that interests you, or?
Yeah, a little bit, absolutely. I work with spreadsheets all the time. And I'm with D3 was one of the modules in Free Code Camp that it was when I went through that course.
I think there's a lot of D3 fans out there. So, just some other things that have kind of popped up in AppScript. So the new document add-ons list. So this is something that Remain picked up and flagged with the community. So basically, it lets people, other editors in the document, to see and easily enable add-ons that are being used in the document. So they might have not originally activated those, but they can see them listed. So that seems to be a nice development in terms of enabling add-on developers to grow their user base. So a nice little feature to come out there. Something that Steve Webster picked up is that the prediction API. I think this is a machine learning set of recipes that you can access via an API. That's deprecated, so that won't be available now after April next year. I haven't done any work with the prediction API. I don't know, Bruce, if you looked at it.
Yeah, I've used it. So what it is, it's a kind of, as you say, a machine language, and the idea is that you train it to know that these values go together, and therefore it's able to predict what an answer will be given and some inputs. So in fact, it's, in some ways you could say it was a precursor to TensorFlow, because it's and really one of the big things about Google right now is all about the AI. So you'll find that the prediction API is going away, but you'll be able to use much more powerful APIs to replace that and do much cooler things. So you'll be seeing lots more of that. So it's not really a surprise it's going away. It just means that you've got to learn how to do some new but cooler things.
Yeah, and the link, we'll share the slide so you can get all these links. The documentation there is basically directing people to what you need to switch to on that. So that was kind of what's come out from kind of the official Google channels, but there's been quite a number of interesting community things that we thought we'd just spotlight. So the first one from Kanchi is a OneDrive library. I think, Bruce, you've played around with OneDrive authentication before.
Yeah, so this was about quite a while ago now, maybe about a year ago. I made some scripts that allowed you to take let's say a sheet on Google Drive and transform it and copy it to OneDrive. So it's just there's an OAuth library component, and then there's using the Drive API as well. So this is kind of similar.
Yeah. So this library will let you make calls. I know quite a few education institutions actually run Office 365 in parallel with G Suite, so it might be something that interests them. Certainly, it's something that we've just got in Scotland. So
yeah, absolutely, especially in China here, where Office 365 seems to be kind of leading the pack.
So Microsoft being more favored in China than Google?
Well, everyone loves Google. I think the services provided by Google are superior. However, the schools tend to run into these problems where at school you can use Google Apps and Google Docs, Google Sheets, stuff like that, because the school might be running through a VPN or proxy. But then when students go home for the night, they might not have the same services set up at home. So the collaboration is great to use in the classroom with those tools, but in terms of sending stuff home, you got to rely on Office 365. I'm just getting, I really haven't used the Office 365 suite of tools very much, really until moving here.
Okay, that's interesting. So OneDrive library is there for you. So this was Eric Carlida he's a Google developer, so it's nice to. I'm not sure if he's still on the Google AppScript development relations team, but he still contributes bits and pieces. So he flagged a object spreadsheet mapping library. So what this does is it makes it easy to have a table of data and just query it. So you can pull off things based on a column value or a row. So there've been various ones of these. I think Bruce, you've highlighted a couple of ways that you can objectify Google Sheets in the past. Have you had a chance to look at this one? And
no, I haven't. I haven't looked at that one yet. No.
The code's on GitHub. It's quite well documented as well. So there's a number of examples there. I think Eric's right. It looks quite nice. Worth a play if you get a chance at some point. Next one is Jonathan Broughton, who has been contributing to Google AppScript for a number of years. He's following you, Bruce. he's wanting to distribute more of what he's doing. So these are I haven't had a chance to look through these yet, but he's published a repo of custom functions. So I think these are sheet functions rather than AppScript functions. But Bruce, did you get a chance to look at this? I know you've been busy for the last week out.
No, I haven't got around to that yet. Yeah. I only saw it this morning, actually.
Yeah.
I will do.
So thanks for that, Jonathan. And something related to that, just to flag, Andrew Roberts was interested if there was any sort of kind of Slack/ another kind of channel that could be used for chat through. I think there've been a couple of attempts at this, and all of them haven't really got that far. So I'm aware of a Slack Google AppScript channel. Jonathan highlighted there's a Gitter one as well, but there hasn't been much activity on that. For me, I think Andrew's I can see him in the YouTube chat. He's very keen for people to get into the Gitter community. I have to say, in my own personal kind of development, I'm quite happy with the Google Plus environment so far for posting questions. But I don't know, Jordan, do you use channels like Slack? Do you think there should be more for Google AppScript in that area?
I haven't really. I haven't really. Stack Overflow is the majority of the Google AppScripting, questions and talk that I get to take part in.
How about you,
I've
Bruce?
used Gitter a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. So in fact, I joined Andrew's Slack channel, I think yesterday, just to have a look at it, see what was going on there. But personally, I mean, you've obviously got Hangouts as well, which is fairly immediate. From my perspective, I want to control the amount of time I spend dealing with stuff, and obviously, if you post a lot of stuff in there and you got people contacting you all the time, including wanting to have a hangout with you right there and then, and people you've never heard of. So, like you, I prefer to space it out a little bit and I'll allocate a certain amount of time to deal with it, rather than it being as asynchronous, if you like, as these chat things can be. But they do have use if you've started a conversation with someone. I think it's good to have a place with which you can do it. A lot better than the post and wait approach that you have in Google Plus and everything. But I don't like the idea of initiating asynchronous conversations on things like that, because I mean, apart from the intrusiveness of it, it actually disappoints people if you can't at that moment participate.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm in kind of two minds about it, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it goes. Sorry, Jordan, you were going to say something.
I would totally agree with the need to kind of centralize conversations in one place is super important for me. Where especially this isn't my primary, function in the day is coding. So when I want to look, when I'm doing stuff with AppScript, I kind of need it to be in one place. I can't look all over the creation for it.
I think these things need a critical mass as well, so it can be quite hard initially. But I think if we've got some enthusiastic people in the community, maybe, and we do have very enthusiastic people in the community. Maybe something will come of that. And I think as long as there's some sort of cross flow as well, so that there is something going on in a channel that the community, the wider community, can perhaps be updated or enticed into that discussion. So the last thing, Bruce, was you've got to your portfolio, you've got another add-on that's available in the store, and you've got a couple of links there. Do you want to talk a bit to that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's lots of add-ons out there, but I wanted to make the point that open sourcing add-ons is a pretty good thing to do, because it gives people who don't know how to get started with complex add-ons somewhere to go. Because they can install it, see what it looks like, see what it does, and then say, well, I wonder how you do that, and then go and get the open source of it. And I guess the other part of it is that this one uses the Slides API, which is a fairly complicated one, and if you want to get started with it, it's a little bit off-putting. So again, it gives you a kickstart on this. A lot of people publish add-ons but don't open source the code. I tend to open source all of mine. I think people are concerned that maybe there's a monetization opportunity that they're missing by not open sourcing it, but quite frankly, it's quite difficult to make any money off the add-on market in any case. So you got to think about whether or not you want to do something for the buzz of doing it, or whether you think you might want to be able to make some money out of it. So I would highly recommend people who are writing add-ons or in fact any code that they feel should be public, to make it public, and everybody will benefit.
Yeah, I really did a show. You guys did a show, I think, about the Google the GitHub Assistant extension that somebody made, and how to integrate that workflow, open sourcing your AppScript code. And I really enjoyed that show because it's something I try to do also. I wouldn't even know where to begin trying to make money off of add-ons.
Yeah.
So I love sharing code. I just don't always have people that are interested in seeing my code.
It does create those opportunities though for people to as well contribute as well. So either providing code patches, or and I know Rudy as well uses quite a bit of GitHub just to help him control the development in terms of feature requests and support. So there's lots of nice things that benefit. But I think Bruce it also potentially leads on quite nicely into what Jordan's going to talk about, providing examples of code. So rather than stealing all of Jordan's thunder, I think that kind of rounds up the community news side. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, we got Jordan Rhea here. So he's got various certificates and awards. Sorry, Bruce, your dog's being a bit noisy, so I'm just going to mute you for a second. So yes, we've got Jordan Rhea here. So he's got various accolades. He's a certified Google Innovator. He's done a lot of work within the education community. So today, Jordan's talking about teachers or makers coding with Google Scripts. So over to you, Jordan. What have you got for us?
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to share my screen and then I'll kind of start this presentation. Yeah, so my name is Jordan Rhea, and I am an English teacher. I've been teaching for the past 8 years, 4 years in Virginia, then the last 4 years in a city called Izmir in Turkey, and now I've just moved with my wife to Beijing, and she is a full-time teacher at a boarding school here, kind of just a little north of Beijing, and I am substituting and kind of taking some time to kind of work on these educational projects. So how did I get started with coding? Really, it was about 3 years ago. I wanted to make games. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to talk about how I got started with coding, then discovering Google Apps Script, and then the Google Innovator Program. My goal of this talk is to show just a few of the projects for education that I've been lucky to have been a part of. Really, a lot of this program has just been the networking aspect of it, and then connecting with people that have these great ideas. I'm going to be honest and say that, you know, I think I'm a pretty good teacher, but I'm not the greatest teacher of all time, but I just happen to learn enough JavaScript to be able to put other great teachers' ideas into kind of these cool proofs of concept. Now I'm on the show. Enough people are interested in it that you guys are talking to me. Am I sharing? Is the screen?
Yeah, we can see your slides.
All right, perfect. So like I said, I'm Jordan Rhea. I'm an English teacher. I'm teaching for 8 years, and now I'm in Beijing. I started learning to code because I wanted to make a game for my 5th graders. We started this one-to-one iPad project where all the kids were bringing in their own iPads, and you know, we were kind of lacking content for it. You know, there's tons of stuff out there, but it doesn't always necessarily mesh with you know, what you want to do in the classroom, or kind of you know, how your classroom works. So I wanted to be able to make my own games, my own content for the classroom, but turned out to be a little harder than I thought. I grabbed this program called Stencil, which is some of the kids were using. It's kind of a little drag and drop thing. You got the blocks, right, and then these loops and conditionals. It's all kind of block formatted. I could not figure out what I was doing there. So then I heard of this thing called Unity, and I was like, 3D games, that sounds really cool. Also, couldn't really figure out what I was doing. So I figured I needed to actually learn the fundamentals of a programming language. You know, I picked up Python and PHP, and those really helped me to figure out the you know, loops and conditionals, and to learn those basic principles. And then I got interested in JavaScript and web development because I stumbled across Free Code Camp, which is like an online curriculum that some guys have been putting together, and now they've formed their own huge community. And you know, it takes you from, you know, very beginning HTML, algorithm practice, jQuery, all the way up to learning Angular, and now I think their focus is with React and kind of creating React apps. And that was super great for me because I could build something and then, you know, it's just proofs of concept. These aren't production, it's not production quality code, I'm sure, but be able to build something that could then, I could show within a couple of days. So it was just the turnaround and stuff. And when you're a teacher and you're constantly coming up with lesson plans and kind of redirecting your curriculum, that's super important. You don't have 6 months to develop a game, you know, that you're going to use for one lesson. So I found Google AppScript around the time. Just as a teacher, I love the collaborative aspect of the Google tools. You know, being able to have multiple people typing in one document or using one spreadsheet at a time, really helpful in a classroom, really cool to use in a classroom. And then I realized that Google AppScript was just built on JavaScript, which is this programming language that I'm learning. So that's where I really got super excited with AppScript. The first thing I built, I was like, this tool is so great. I really want to, you know, I hate typing in grades. I just hate doing it. But it's just a part of being a teacher. You gotta type in grades. How can I make it a little bit faster? So I created, this is I think my first add-on. I created this tool with jQuery and really just so that I could type in grades more quickly. And all it does is allow you to, you know, select where, you know, which column you're putting a grade into. It's got a grading scale for reference if you need it, but then you can just uses the jQuery autocomplete, and then I can just type in grades super quickly, and then it just focuses automatically back up to the right name. And it just allowed me to kind of type in grades more quickly, even if I have, you know, a grading scale. And I don't know, this was a fun little project that I had to speed up the way that I was grading it. I hesitate to open up the script editor and show the code. I mean, it's sloppy nuts.
What were the main kind of technical hurdles for you to get over on that project?
Well, so I was just reading. Can you say that again?
Was it the autocomplete or?
Yeah, the autocomplete, and I was new to jQuery, and then I think it's actually, is it jQuery UI that has the autocomplete? And I didn't even really understand how these libraries came together to work at all. I just, you know, I was starting to learn kind of the basics of JavaScript, but I just didn't, not everything was clicking for me. But you know, it worked for me. I got the thing working. I think I published it unlisted so I could share it with some other teachers that I worked with at the time, and people thought it was cool. And it was at the same time I started creating this. We have to type it. You know, we have units that we design, and in Turkey we used a format called unit by design, and then the school had its own format that they wanted unit plans submitted in. And I was like, what a great thing to automate, you know, how to develop these unit plans, because you have things that you got to do on every single one. You got to, you have objectives that you have to choose specifically. Everything's got to be in its own little format. So I just created a kind of a way to, you know, template these things, and, you know, build my units. Really, this was when I started describing it as I would spend 20 hours developing an add-on to save myself 5 minutes. But really a lot of it was just practice. I was going through free code camp at the time, and I just, I was really liking JavaScript and the things that I was learning, and I thought it was super cool. And it works. It would develop. Close these out. It worked for what I wanted it to do, right? It got the job done, and it was at that time that I think I made that and was using that, and then I found out that there's a whole series of Google certifications that you can get for teaching. Now, like the Google Certified Educator Levels 1 and 2, those are just for for using the Google apps in your classroom. Docs. How can you more effectively use Docs and Sheets to plan lessons? But they have a program called the Innovator Academy that actually you apply for. You have to propose a project, apply, and you wait a couple of months, and then you hear that you've been accepted or denied. And I thought, well, I've been doing these things with Google Apps Script. I should apply for this Innovator Academy, and have my project be building these kind of tools, using AppScript to build tools for education that, because I'm certainly not the last person to ever have an idea, right? I mean, there's so many teachers that have great ideas, but maybe are lacking the tools to really bring those to reality. So that was my project presentation.
Were there many app scripters or app script projects as part of the Innovator program, or you blazing the path on
that? There weren't really many coders at the Innovator Academy. So the one that I went to was in Boulder, Colorado, at the offices there, the Google offices there. Really, the other people there, I met a couple of people that were interested in coding. I'll talk about a couple of people in a minute. There's a guy named Wesley Chun. He's like on every single one of the Google API tutorial videos.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen him.
I had the pleasure of meeting Wesley.
Yeah, actually, I was with him 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I met him there.
He just did a presentation. He did a presentation for us, and it was like meeting a YouTube celebrity. Hey, I've seen you before.
Wesley's really good at distilling, a coding idea or concept and then conveying that. I find he's a great kind of, if people are just starting out, he's a great avenue just to see what's possible, and he makes it look also easy as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. But he did a short presentation there, and in his presentation, one of his the tools that he was working on, I think it was called GForms or GForms Plus. And I had tried to make a similar thing myself with Google Apps Script that, halfway worked, but it was kind of a really rudimentary implementation of the same idea. So I pulled him aside afterwards and talked to him for a few minutes. And I mean, it really was like meeting a YouTube celebrity. Hey, Wesley Chun, I've seen you before. Can I show you something? But other than that, it was a lot of teachers, really passionate educators, but not necessarily people that had really been exposed to any sort of programming themselves. It is a fairly time-intensive hobby, and teaching is a fairly time-intensive profession too. So it was certainly understandable. but it kind of works perfectly for what my idea for my project was. And my idea has definitely kind of shifted a little bit, over the course of the past year. But I really wanted to help other people with their projects. And so so the next couple of things I'm going to talk about are those projects. I met, talking about guys who are coders, so Dan Sharp, he had this project where he was actually doing some coding himself. He was building this badging system with Google Sheets and Google Forms. And so we started talking about AppScript, and we made a couple of YouTube videos probably 9 months ago. And we had this idea together that we would use Google Forms to kind of create a real-time response wall, so that as you could use Google Forms as we call them exit tickets, or kind of just inquiry wonder walls, where students can just ask a question at the end, or maybe answer a question, just something to kind of wrap up a lesson. And so the idea was, where am I here? I'm going to get confused with with where I am. So we built this tool. It's basically just an add-on that shows forms responses as live on a page. So I'll just test it as an add-on here. It gives you the option of just different ways of displaying student responses, and then you can just put it up on the projector, and then it auto refreshes itself. So as students submit forms responses to this, it just appears right on the board, and it's kind of a fun little way to end a lesson. There's one thing students, especially fifth graders, I'm mostly familiar with primary, but they love seeing their name on the board in any fashion. And so anytime you can, provide the availability there. So this is kind of, an iteration of what we did there. There's like a corkboard version and a chalkboard version. And really, it's just it's an add-on that just pipes information to something deployed as a web app. So that was kind of the first collaborative thing that I did with people that I met in Boulder. The next thing, Melissa Oliver, she contacted me after Boulder. I met her there, but she contacted me later and was like, Jordan, you're the guy who's interested in scripting. I have an idea where she wanted to build a tool she teaches primarily deaf students. And she loves the caption creator that's available with YouTube. Like you can community source, the closed captioning. And have people write them. However, teachers don't always want all of their student work on YouTube, right? If you make a video, you don't necessarily want to put every student video on YouTube. And she wanted a tool that was something similar to that, but worked with Google Drive. So I was like, oh, that sounds like a fun project. So I was experimenting with the picker tool, and basically just trying to replicate the functionality of that YouTube closed captioning. Where it just loads up the video. Then as you play it, you can type. And then it pauses the video as you type, and then it adds it to the text. Right, and so it creates this SRT. You can sometimes I'll stop it there. It's enough. You know, you can add timestamps as you go, because sometimes the SRT format requires that. And then you can download it as a text SRT file, or you can save it right into Google Docs and just create transcripts of videos.
Is there a playback option? So I'm thinking of, you know, the videos hosted on Drive. Is there a way to recombine?
You can add the SRT to the
subtitles.
To the Drive. So no, you have to do that manually. I didn't have a way to programmatically like create that.
There's a web app for you then. You can select the video, select the file, and then you could use. I'm pretty sure you could piggyback one of these players, like JW Player has a accessibility plugin that you can play back SRT files with the video. So maybe we should speak later about that one.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, Melissa is super passionate about creating these transcripts. I think, you know, her motivation is with students, you know, that are hard of hearing, but then it's super important in ESL classrooms too. She has a whole website here. You can link to the bottom. The link color is a little odd, but createaccessibility.com. You know, this is one of those projects that I thought it was really interesting, but then I also really wanted to practice, you know, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I like the learning aspect of these projects also.
I think when you start developing add-ons, there's, you know, so much user interfacing that needs to be done. What's your kind of flow for that? Are you just looking for existing examples of HTML markup, or do you just start from scratch? How do you usually go about it?
Well, so like this was, I used a framework called Skeleton CSS to just kind of get to just create some CSS layout. And then I just kind of sketched out in a notebook kind of what I wanted it to look like. And then just created from there. I don't have a super professional wireframing system for what I'm doing. Really, it was kind of a hangout like this with Melissa, and then she sent me a bunch of messages. You know, she had ideas, really, because I want it to be a tool that, you know, that she uses. So I kind of went with what, you know, really what she was mostly interested in. So yeah, that's the caption creator. What was next? This library portfolio. So this was actually built not with somebody that I've met in Boulder. I'm gonna just throw this into the middle here. But the librarian at the school where I worked in Turkey, she wanted a way to kind of engage students when they came into the library. The library lessons were like once a week, and they were kind of hectic because you've got 20, you know, middle school or primary school kids, you know, in a library, and you want them to get books, but you kind of want to direct them at the same time. So she wanted like a quiz that was kind of like one of those, what am I thinking of? Those BuzzFeed quizzes that you get all the time, right? Where there's like, you know, which of the Scooby-Doo characters are you? And then you answer a bunch of questions, and it tells you which character you are from Scooby-Doo. Well, so I found on CodePen somebody had a kind of similar system that I modified. So this would be where I got that from, CodePen, to accomplish this. And then you know, she developed the questions for it, and then she using forms, she just created these lists of books And then I tied into the Goodreads API to pull book covers. And then students can, select these books, and then it starts a there's a reading response project for them in a folder for them on Google Drive. And then you can see all of the little projects that you've got here on Google Drive, and it links to them. And then she created all these templates, right? So I just coded it to take her templates, randomly one of these templates out of there, and then Destiny Quest is a system that a lot of school libraries use. And so it kind of ties in a bunch of different services, just to make it easier for her and for the students too, to keep track of what they're doing, build a reading list. And so that's the library portfolio. That was really fun for me, just to kind of use APIs that I'm not familiar with to, with AppScript. Then an email summarizer with Desiree Alexander, who I met in Boulder also. She wanted we get lots of emails, and then she wanted a way to kind of summarize emails the way that, in Google Groups, you can choose to have a daily summary instead of constant updates. Well, she wanted a way to do that with, other emails. And so I thought a cool way to do it would be to take labels, so like when you look at your Gmail, and you've got all these let me turn this, and you've got all these labels in there. So to be able to kind of summarize those and then archive them, or what was that? Summarize those and then archive them, and then it sends you a document of those at the end of the day. And that was a learning experience for me with triggers and how the triggers work. You can see, commented code that I've got. And, so that was definitely a learning experience for me. But we came up with a, kind of a prototype for a tool it's fairly useful. Most recently, this multi-dropdown data validator that I built. My friend Daniel Sharp, I mentioned him earlier. He messaged me with this idea to create those drop-down data validations that are dependent on each other. So when you select something, it creates a drop-down to the right, and then as you change it. So we came up with a couple of different ways to do that with named ranges. You have to create a bunch of named ranges, and then it takes the first cell in that named range as column 1, and then the rest of them become column 2. And then with multi-columns, where it just takes the first cell, you can just create a bunch of columns to be your select boxes. So, the multiple columns, you've got social studies, and then it gives you a drop down.
And I think you've published.
So we got this working. Me and Daniel Sharp got this working, and then he's a super big advocate in the States. He lives in Denver, actually, and we published it to the add-on store, and I get way too many messages about it with people just telling me that it doesn't work, and I don't know. I didn't expect it. This is a situation of, I didn't build a production quality tool, and then I released it because I wanted other people to use it, but it's definitely not perfect code. I just wanted I got it working in the way that I wanted, but now I get a ton of messages from people telling me that there's no add-on for it, or it doesn't work, and then but there's nothing specific about these complaints. And when I try it, it works perfectly. So that's a thing of me not being a professional developer and trying to troubleshoot problems. I bet for you guys, I'm sure trying to understand your users' complaints is a problem you're used to, but this was the first project where I really ran into that. So that was the last project.
And I think you published quite a few videos around some of these. So I think with on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I like to make because I don't like I've tried to start a blog at various times, but I don't keep up with it. It's easier for me to kind of demonstrate what I'm doing when somebody has a question on YouTube than writing a blog post. But yeah, I go through a number of these projects. I only really covered 5 here. I'm leaving a bunch out, and no offense to any of the other teachers that I've worked with in the past year, but I just chose 5 to show. But if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see a ton of different projects. All of them are really, they're proofs of concept, just to show what is capable with Google Apps Script, what you're capable of doing with Google Apps Script. Because I think a lot of teachers aren't aware of those things, and I used to hear in meetings all the time, it'd be great if it did this. Too bad it doesn't, and then that's the end of the conversation. When I think really it doesn't need to be the end of the conversation, because I think there are so many things that are possible. I hesitate to even say that something isn't possible, because I'm so stubborn that I kind of if it's not possible in the most direct way, I'll find an API somewhere or find some hacky solution to make it work. So was that the last thing that I wanted to? Oh yeah, so I've got a bunch of other things that I'm working on, and then my project specifically, I created a kind of a React app with Firebase, where I was trying to bring a lot of these things together, where the app scripting stuff that I was doing, having this kind of real-time conversation about these ideas. And so this was the kind of the tool that I built. I really have found that I don't really, we were talking at the beginning when you're doing your community update, centralizing information in one place. I don't know that I necessarily need another app for this, right? There's already Stack Overflow, there's Google+, there's these great communities that are available. I don't know that I really need kind of just a central location just for creating teacher tools. But that was my project, and yeah, so I'm sure I left some things out. Again, my apologies to all of the cool projects that I didn't mention here, but there's not enough time. So
one question I often get asked is, I'm presenting stuff and people can see what is, the potential of using Google Drive with, marking stuff, in sheets, and but they're non-coders, and they really want to do that as well. And the question I always get asked is, where do you start? So what would be your? I always don't have an answer to that.
I
But what would
can't,
your?
I can't say enough good things about Free Code Camp.
Right.
It was, it's laid out in a super straightforward way. It's an interactive tool. So like as you interactive in the same way that like Code Academy is, or Code School. I've used both of those, but I just didn't really stick with it. Like a lot of, you know, we're going back 3 years to when I kind of started that. And a lot of the tools for learning that I found were like, okay, so, okay, here's a string, and this is an integer, and this is an object. An object is the blueprints for building a house. Now build the next Facebook. And it's like, I don't know how to get from, you know, the ABCs to the, to full on Latin, you know, like I don't.
Yeah.
So Free Code Camp was provided all of these projects along the way. And that's really what gave me the idea to, you know, because you do some stuff with jQuery, and then they're like, okay, here's 5 project ideas. Now build them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you're building them, and then as you're doing that, then you have other ideas. And, you know, so it was somewhere around there that I was like, you know what? We really like building this stopwatch is cool, but you know what I actually need is a grading tool for when I'm typing in grades. Can I use the same stuff that I'm using with jQuery to build that? I wonder. And then so then kind of connecting that knowledge, and really Free Code Camp pushed all of that stuff together, right? The whole idea of this project-based learning, and then providing a very straightforward curriculum for doing that was super great. Now, I'm sure there are other tools available, but I mean, there's nothing like Free Code Camp. You also talked about the Slack and Gitter, I think, at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
And they have, you know, if you want to take part in their community, they have a huge channel of people that are hanging out, trying to answer questions. I probably have spent a ton of time on Stack Overflow. I've actually been trying to, I've used Stack Overflow so much over the past 3 years, but now I'm trying to really answer those Google Apps scripting questions. So I kind of set a goal for myself for the year to maybe get my Stack Overflow points up to about 1,000. So those are really the starting places.
So when
Free Code Camp, I can't say that, can't speak highly of it enough.
So when you hit problems, is it Stack Overflow the place you go, or do you just Google something and see if you hit Stack Overflow hit, or?
I always hit, I always start with a Google search when I run into problems. With Google Apps Script, the problems that I run into now are mostly having to do with like permissions and me not understanding that various ways that the app script code is a little bit different than the JavaScript is like a little bit different than, you know, they're very I don't know, they're problems that I don't often find a lot of answers. So it takes some trial and error sometimes.
It's quite. It seems that your kind of project-based approach as well seems to be helping you a lot in terms of, you know, you've got a focus in terms of what you want to solve, and so you have the destination set. You just got to figure out the journey.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you know, that was something I'd never really put into words until last summer and taking part in that Innovator Academy, where they talk more about finding problems than solving them, right? Once you've found the problem, you'll get to that end point. You know, you just got to keep pushing yourself forward. But finding the problem is more difficult. Being able to really hone in on what the problem is kind of the most important part.
So
that's why the whole networking aspect of it is incredible.
So if people are interested in your projects and kind of your journey, where's the best place that they can find you and find stuff?
Well, probably Twitter. I'm at RayJT at Twitter, and on Twitter, and you can find my YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Jordan Rhea, and you know, leave comments there. I have a website, jordanrhea.com, and that's got a contact form that I actually just recently added that to my website, and I used Google Apps Script to send the emails, and I made a little video about that.
Right.
And no, I mean, nobody's ever used it, so I'm sure, other than me testing it. So I'm sure there's probably some problems with my code.
Let's see if we can change that then. So if you're watching this and you want to get in touch with Jordan, you have to go to his website and test out his form. Those are the rules.
JordanRhea.com. Find my contact form and break it.
I know Matt Knoll has joined the Hangout, so he's a fellow educator, I think based in the States. So I don't know if Matt, but Matt, I don't know if you've got any thoughts or reflections you want to just add before we close the show.
Yeah, like Martin said, I work in education as well. I kind of a self-taught background as well in coding with AppScript. Yeah, I tuned in towards the end here. I've kind of been double multitasking here, but everything from you looks great. I hear you have a website, but I missed where it's at. What was the web address for your website?
JordanRhea.com. Here, I'll screen share myself again, and
I can share it for people in the YouTube chat as well, so they can.
It's just JordanRhea.com, and down at the bottom, you see this form that I backed with Google Apps Script. It's just a Bootstrap, simple Bootstrap form, but then it uses AppScript to send the email. And I made a little YouTube video of that is on my YouTube channel. And that's also just youtube.com/Jordan Rhea. And you can see pretty much all of my projects there. All of the projects that are worth, that made it to some semblance of completion.
You mentioned your interest in the GitHub show we did. So if people want to find it and modify any of the code of the projects, are they all open sourced, or some of them open sourced, or can people contact you?
All of them I am more than willing to open source. I did not always push them to GitHub. However, I've got everything on Google Drive. If you're interested in anything that I've ever done, or you want any of the code, if you find anything that you think is of value, and you want to see the code, please send me a comment, send me a message on Twitter, and I will be more than willing to go back in and push it to GitHub. I might even just spend a day kind of just cleaning up my GitHub and pushing repositories, pushing some AppScript repositories out there. But yeah, no, if yeah, if it's a if I've built it, I'm more than willing to put it on GitHub. The code, when I was learning Node and React and stuff for building this website, I think this, well, yeah, this is on GitHub. All the code for it. Yeah, I'm more than willing to share everything that I've built on GitHub.
That's great.
So yeah, if you want it, all you gotta do is ask.
Matt, did you want to come with anything?
Yeah, so I just wanted to backtrack a little. The link I just shared in the group chat, I don't know if it makes it onto YouTube or not. But particularly if you're developing something in AppScript that lives inside of a Google Sheet or a Google Doc, Google's documentation is great for their built-in functions in AppScript. Yeah, there's the site. You have like a 5-minute quick start that takes you through building your first add-on, and I found that to be very beneficial.
Totally.
It's quite interesting. I've got a very similar story to Jordan in terms of how I came to AppScript. Did you, when you start reading the documentation, did it immediately make sense, or do you think you have to spend time just to understand how methods and things are marked up and things are optional?
Yeah, so similar story for me as well. I kind of got into coding. I use codeacademy.com, but I'm sure it's fairly similar to what is on the other site that Jordan mentioned. But so as long as you understand the basics of a programming language, variables, loops, that sort of thing. Once you got the basics down, AppScript is the documentation Google has for it is fairly self-explanatory, I would say. And it's very thorough too, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was a point where, I remember it was probably been only the past year that I've really been able to look through the reference page here with confidence. I remember being, following links and getting here and having no clue, not understanding what I was looking at all. So yeah, there's definitely kind of a little bit of a learning curve to it, but once you start to make sense of how the services connect to these methods and which methods apply to which services, then it starts to become second nature.
Pieces start to fall together. Well, somehow we managed to go over time again, but hopefully people watching have found this conversation useful. If nothing else, hopefully you've discovered some of the work that Jordan's been doing, and discovered that he seems very amenable to collaborating with other people. So even if you haven't got the coding skills just yet, it sounds like if you've got an idea that interests Jordan, I think he might just pick that up and run with it. So thanks very much, Jordan, for taking the time and sharing some of the stuff that you've been getting up to.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the conversation. Hope to talk with you guys more.
And thanks, Matt, as well, for popping in. Matt is someone else I've met on Twitter and enjoyed seeing what he's done with AppScript. So thanks, Matt, for taking the time to drop in. We haven't got another show lined up just yet, but stay tuned on the Totally Unscripted website, and we'll publish more details for our next show. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and until next time, bye.